Welcome back to the channel, everybody. In today's video, we're going to be attempting to beat Spark the Electric Jester without hitting the jump button once. This video idea has been a common trend I've seen going around YouTube lately, so I decided since I'm, a gaming channel and I mostly cover Spark the Electric Jester, why don't I give this challenge a little shot with one of my favorite platforming games. Of course, I'll be detailing my strats to this run and showing whether or not it's actually possible to beat Spark the Electric Jester without hitting the jump button. I hope you all enjoyed this little fun video idea, as well as like, comment, and subscribe if you do, because, it helps the channel. Okay, so the first thing I do upon launching the game is to remap the jump button to something like L or R so I don't accidentally press it during gameplay. This will ensure that the integrity of the run stays nice and jump free. Upon starting the game, oh wait, before I even do anything I have to mention the rules for this run. I can beat the game in any main campaign, either Farks, Sparks, or Spark Challenge mode. Of course, I'm going to do Sparks normal mode because that's the one that makes the most sense. Immediately starting the game, I skipped the tutorial because that requires you to do some wall jumping, which is obviously strictly prohibited in this run of the game, and we start off with the first level, FM City. And it is here where I run into the first of many hiccups during this run, this little cliff right here. The first one, I can make the jump by charging my electric attack and aiming it downward, which gives me a little boost of momentum into the air. The problem is, if I try to do the same for the other one, it doesn't give me enough height to reach the cliff. I tried at this for some time until I finally recognized that I would never get enough height off of his electric attack to reach the cliff, and therefore recognizing that it is actually impossible to beat Spark the Electric Jester without jumping. Oh well, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm joking, of course. This run would be impossible if not for one specific thing I could turn on in the options menu that would make me be able to reach this cliff. See, in Spark the Electric Jester, there's this setting called Wishes Mode, where if you turn it on, you have access to every power-up in the game at your own leisure. An extremely overpowered mode, and something that I didn't forbid for this run of the game. With Wishes Mode turned on, we are able to access probably the most important and integral power-up to this run of the game, the Wind Jester. This ability is just so broken. It is arguably one of the best abilities in the entire franchise, and unarguably the best momentum-based ability in this game specifically. One of the many overpowered things you can do with this Jester ability is a charged attack that will launch Spark into the air whenever you angle it downward. This particular move is absolutely monumental for this run of the game, as it essentially gives me a jump. The only thing that it sucks at really is combat, which is not so hard to do when you have other abilities at your disposal with Wishes Mode turned on. With that out of the way, we absolutely blast through FM City and make it to the second level, FM Canyon, without much struggle since, again, the Wind Jester ability is broken. Now, before I continue, I might add that this is probably going to be a majority of the run of the game, because unfortunately for y'all, Wind Jester is the only realistic way you could do this challenge. You could maybe probably accomplish it with the Gravity Jester as well, but that's a little iffy since I don't know whether or not levitating counts as jumping. But with that all being said, let's move on to FM Canyon. This level is relatively the same as FM City, with some minor hiccups during the boss part because you have to avoid the laser bits, and they're really hard to do if you can't jump over them. But other than that, I really killed him super easy because, again, I can switch to any power-up, and the Bat Jester happens to be one of the strongest abilities, although you will see me use that less as the run continues. But on to the next level, Network Coast. One thing you will see a lot during this run is me spamming the air dash because it's super overpowered with the Wind Jester. I know, big surprise. Because it allows you to essentially fly in midair if you just do it into a wall. Or even if you don't do it into a wall, it allows you to keep your momentum in the air and stay for way longer than what it would be normally. And because of this technique I will call dash spamming, I am able to keep my momentum in midair and just essentially fly with the Wind Jester. Like I said before, this ability is super overpowered and probably is going to carry us throughout this entire run. With that being said, I easily defeat the mini-boss and move into Network Harbor. Actually pretty difficult level for this challenge because there are a lot of moving platforms and corridors that you have to navigate through. Nothing too challenging that I can't handle though, and I'm able to make it to the final part of the level where you have, a flying boss. See, the thing about the Wind Jester is that while it's really good for momentum and platforming, it is horrible at combat. essentially meaning that I would have to spend almost 10 minutes just fighting a boss midair since I can't do normal jumps, and I would have to be doing the spam charge attack. I would need to find a Jester power-up that is not only good at doing consistent damage, but also one that I could use without jumping. I don't use that Jester power-up for this fight, but I assure you that I find the perfect one in the future. For now, I just spam the Wind Jester's charge attack at the ground and switch to the bat really fast to do his midair attack. Luckily, since you can angle charge attacks in basically any direction, I am able to shoot my super beam up and hit the boss for massive damage, ending the fight quicker than I expected. And with that, I move into Smog Sewer. It was around this part of the run that I started to wonder to myself, is this too easy with Wishes mode on? After all, the Wind Jester basically makes this challenge just beat Spark the Electric Jester with Wind Jester ability only, and since I can switch to basically any ability I want, what makes this challenge actually, challenging? I actually experimented a bit off screen with other modes of the game I could try to make it more entertaining, and that's when I discovered that Spark's hardcore mode doesn't have the same cliff in the beginning that is impossible to get over. You could traverse it with the simple electric charge attack at the ground. That's what made me wonder to myself, if it was theoretically possible to get past that cliff and get a Wind Jester later in the level, could you actually do the challenge on hardcode mode rather than on normal mode? Just a little suggestion to myself, as I didn't really feel like doing the hardcore mode of Spark without having to press the jump button. That just seemed like too much to me. But maybe later down the road, I might actually do that challenge if y'all would like to see it. Back into Smog Sewer, this level is pretty easy essentially because they have the water physics which allow you to jump even higher if you have the Wind Jester ability and you aim it at the ground. Honestly, the hardest part in this level was the boss itself and not actually the level. I still haven't found out which combat jester I should use for this run, and I was switching between fire and bat, which both were not really good for this type of run. Next we go into Smog City, and this one's actually a pretty interesting one because one of the SPC challenges in Spark the Electric Jester is to beat Smog City without jumping, and you're forced to use the Wind Jester ability. So because of that, I already have the experience I need to blast past this level. Plus with the bonus addition that I don't die every time I hit one enemy. So that's cool. I will say, one of the harder parts of this level was this section with this moving spiked car thingy. It was actually really hard to navigate the enemies without taking damage, which is another challenge I thought to add to this, but then I realized that would be almost impossible because, I'm not exactly the best at this game. Anyways, we get to fight Troppus, and this is probably one of the easiest boss fights because I don't even need to jump to dodge any of his attacks. I could just do the dash parry mechanic, which I only recognize that's a thing you could do on my second playthrough of Spark the Electric Jester, because, the game never tells you that. I guess since you could do the parry mechanic with Fark in his playthrough of the game, it would automatically be assumed that you could also do the same thing with Spark, but I never assumed that, so yeah. On to Sunset Heights, and this is another one of those SPC challenge levels that got me used to the movement of the Wind Jester and how to navigate through the corridors with him. So, another breeze level, as you can see. That is until you get to the boss of Fark, in which I actually run into some trouble. See, this boss fight requires that you hit Fark in the cockpit specifically in order to deal damage, which I did not know you had to. Because of this, I spammed the Archer ability at him for almost 10 seconds at the beginning of the fight before I realized I had to actually use the Wind Jester to, blast myself up there and hit him personally. The funniest thing is, Archer Jester is the best ability for this run of the game, which I'm going to use for basically the rest of the bosses, and that's because I can angle it in any direction, which means I don't have to jump and I can stay still in my place. Additionally, the fire rate of this Jester ability is completely dependent on how fast you, the player, can tap the button. So of course, if you're a fast button masher, you can deal out insane amounts of damage to the bosses in this game and kill them within seconds. Another overpowered Jester ability that I am just now recognizing its full potential in. We make it to the second part of Sunset Heights, Eiffel Lair Tower, haha, I see the pun you did there, Lake, where the actual SPC challenge, Don't Touch the Floor, actually takes place. I once again blast through this level because I basically have the entire level memorized from spamming those challenges. So we make it to the final boss of Sunset Heights, the Metal Crow, where I really showcase just how overpowered the Archer Jester can really be. See, the final supercharged attack for this Jester ability essentially takes the cap off of how many arrows I can fire per second, which allows me to just go ham on the boss and basically kill it in like 2 seconds. The only problem that I need to watch out for is that if I take damage during this super attack, I will lose the ability to shoot infinite arrows. One beautiful cutscene later, and we make our way into Litoria Bay, a level that I am now recognizing is massively underrated in the Spark fanbase. Seriously, the aesthetics and music for this level are simply gorgeous, and I really don't see a lot of people talk about it that much. As for the level design itself, I felt this level actually gave me quite the challenge with this no jumping rule, as there's like a maze part in the middle of the level design where you have to navigate through these floaty platforms that activate when you hit them. The problem is, I can't do a jump attack in midair because I would have to jump and then press the attack button, so I would have to do it when I fall down, which would not give me enough time to land on those platforms. So I have to do some more dash spamming in order to get past this little maze section, which of course I get lost in at least once. I will say though, the gimmicks for this level are really cool, and I actually really like the boss fight towards the end with Romalo and his changing sceneries. The idea of him using holograms in order to fight us is a really cool idea that I haven't really seen replicated in media that often. With that being done, we move on into Karana Forest, one of my personal favorite levels in the game. The atmosphere and tone for this stage is just simply perfect, and it always feels amazing to just listen to that chill out groove in the background as you move your way through this beautiful, beautiful forest. I had a few hiccups with this level, as the underwater section is actually pretty hard to navigate with all of the enemies and such, and I really don't like the parts where the boxes fall down through the pipes, as it's a very easy crushing mechanism for you, and as you know, in 2D platformers, crushing is an instant death. But other than those two things, it was relatively simple to get through the level, as always. But then we get to the boss fight at the end, and oh boy, Ka, the machine with the saws on it, is actually a really tough boss fight to fight when you don't have the ability to jump. Many of his attacks are really hard to dodge, such as the screen swipe he does with his saw blades, and the second phase of the fight where half the platforms break off and there's an abyss that you can just fall into, really makes this boss actually pretty intense for this run of the game. There were many times in this fight where I came really close to dying, either from taking too much damage or from falling off the platform. I had to maintain focus on switching to the Wind Jester whenever I accidentally came close to falling off the platforms just to save myself in the nick of time. But I did it, and with that, I make my way into probably my least favorite stage in the game, Mare Desert. It was here where I ran into another hiccup with this run, and it's these little cannon thingies. See, the way it works is that when Spark goes into them, he can shoot himself in any direction you choose to, but the problem is it requires you to press the jump button. At first, I tried to do everything in my power to avoid these mechanisms by either flying through the entire stage or just avoiding them narrowly, because essentially touching them would soft lock my game, as I would have to restart the level since I'm not allowed to press the jump button. It seemed possible at first, until you make your way into this little corridor where jumping into the cannon is absolutely necessary to progress through Mare Desert. So it was at this part of the run where I finally had to realize it is not possible to beat Spark the Electric Jester without jumping. Oh well, we tried, guys. That is, of course, if you count shooting yourself out of a canyon as the same thing as jumping, which is silly, and I should have never considered that a thing. So because of this second realization, I allowed myself to use the canyons, as it's not me technically jumping, it's just me hitting the jump button in order to activate a machine, which are two completely different actions. With that little problem out of the way, I make my way through Mare Desert where I run into these purple gel things. The way this gimmick works is that if you press the button while you have some applied to you, you essentially get a double jump. Of course, this is all irrelevant information to me, as I can bypass all the obstacles in this level pretty easily with the Wind Jester, with it being as overpowered as can be and all. With that being said, we easily make our way to the end of Mare Desert, defeat Prototype, one of the easiest bosses in the game, and make our way into Lunar Base, another level featured in the SPC challenges for this game. In that challenge, you have to use the Gravity Jester and avoid touching the ground. Of course, since I have the Wind Jester and we can touch the ground all we want in this no jumping challenge, that makes Lunar Base one of the easiest levels to do in this challenge, considering the fact that it's completely rid and void of all enemies. There's not even a boss at the end, just some nice visuals and some sick music you can listen to as you groove through the level. That leaves us to about the halfway point through the adventure, where we make our way to Karya Valley, another SPC challenge level. This one also happens to be Don't Touch the Floor, but in that one you do get to use the Wind Jester, which I already established gave me experience so I can breeze through this level pretty easily. Only thing I have to worry about is the boss in the lava, which is that little spike spear thing that follows you and you have to hop over it. But that's pretty easy to dodge, especially considering that the Archer Jester has an attack that allows you to basically fly if you have infinite arrows by aiming it at the ground. I'm telling you, man, this challenge is extremely easy if you have just the remote knowledge of Spark the Electric Jester. We make our way into Turbulence Plains, a level that I might add looks just as gorgeous as Karya Valley in my humble opinion. It is here where I'm faced with one of the core mechanics of the stage, the moving trains. These are pretty easy to dodge, as you just gotta do a well-timed charged attack in order to avoid them, but they can definitely catch you off guard, and I actually lost my Wind Jester power up to one of them. Of course, with Wishes mode turned on, that's not really a big concern, but if I didn't have Wishes mode turned on for this challenge and just had the Wind Jester, I'm pretty sure I would have been screwed here. Again, the bosses were pretty easy. Just spam the Archer power-up with the infinite arrows and you'll kill them really fast. And more or less the same thing happened for Original Complex as well, as the only thing that gave me trouble in that stage really were the piping. So overall, I can say that this challenge is absolutely easy and possible to do if you have the Wind Jester ability. That is until you make your way to Metagraph Fleet and Metagraph Fortress. Before I go to those two levels, I'm not going to even bother mention Sunfire Forest, as it was such an easy level to do. I think I was doing it while having a conversation with one of my friends in Discord. It was that easy.
After this video, I'm gonna go on a run.
You're gonna what? You're gonna go on a run?
I was going to run. Yeah,
Alright. Wait, my trap? Alright.
I have to go on my day off.
Aren't you quitting?
Not yet. I quit on
Oh. The problem we are faced with towards the end of the game is that Metagraph Fleet is actually a really hard level to get through on its own, so not being able to jump makes it 10 times harder. That is of course true, if I didn't already have extensive knowledge about this stage level design from the SPC challenges, you know, that one, which took me almost an hour to beat in my first playthrough. Because of the many failures of that run through, I was able to relatively get through Metagraph Fleet, though it did take a lot of time and hard effort on my part since, you know, no jumping. It was when we got to the versus Fark boss battle where I started to actually have some legitimate problems. See, his attack patterns are really crazy and really big, so the only way you could possibly dodge them is either by dash parrying through them or jumping, which I'm not allowed to do. So I died a total of at least 5 times in this boss battle, just trying to find a great coordination between attacking him and dash parrying through his massive attacks. Eventually, I was able to recognize that since I was able to complete all the SPC challenges, I have the fun little reward of having access to Super Spark via the Wishes mode. So I was able to switch to Super Spark, which is really overpowered for combat, and essentially perfect for this fight since his attacks are also massive, and I'm not forced to get up really close to Fark in order to deal damage. With Fark being defeated, we have only one level we need to proceed through in order to beat this game, and that is, of course, Metagraph Fortress. I will say right off the bat that this was probably the most fun level to beat in the game, as it actually provided a decent amount of challenge to me, since I wasn't allowed to jump. Of course, through an excessive use of Wind Jester charged attacks and dash spamming, I was able to speed through this level through sections I personally didn't even think were possible to do, even with the ability to jump. It truly amazed myself with how well I've gotten with the movement in Spark the Electric Jester, and I would be happy to speedrun this game normally one day, as it is really fun to play. With that being said, we make it to the end of the fortress where we have to fight Freon in his boss battle. Again, of course, I can just spam the Archer ability, which does a lot of damage, but after this, a little cutscene plays, and I recognize something that is gravely bad. See, I forgot that during this cutscene, we switched to Fark's point of view, where he has to give the super staff to Spark in order to save his life. The problem is, you have to control him for a brief amount of time through this little snowy landscape in order to reach the staff, and that's where we run into this. The dreaded cliff. It's come back to haunt me, ever since I decided to activate Wishes mode, which is basically cheating for this challenge. Because of this little occurrence and the fact that Fark can't do charged attacks like Spark can, it is actually impossible to get past this cliff without using the jump button to bypass it. So for the third and final time, I actually mean it this time when I say it is impossible to beat Spark the Electric Jester without jumping at least once. Way to ruin things, Fark. We screwed up right at the finish line. All we had to do was get that staff to him, and that would be it. I would have beat the game. But instead, you had to have this one annoying little cliff at the end. Oh well. I hope this video was really entertaining to you, as it was pretty fun to do this little challenge for a niche franchise like Spark. I'm always happy to give it the attention it deserves. But with that being said, make sure to do all that YouTube stuff that you hear people constantly talk about all the time, and I'll see you next time with more Spark the Electric Jester content.